One of the most important things in Photoshop is knowing how to undo your mistakes. Luckily, Photoshop has the history palette that is made specifically for that. And also you can say, you know what, save this spot. So if you're working on something, you think you're in a pretty good place, but you want to tweak it a little bit, you can always say, hey, stop right here, do all your tweaks. And if you don't like it, you can go back in time. It's the history palette. So let's go in here and look at exactly how this works. So the history palette is next to our navigator here. And it's this little thing right here that if you click it, you can see all the different things that I've done. So this is that same Karen on Beans that we just did. And you can see all the different steps that I have taken. And so you can see that if I go back one by clicking it, so you can see that the beans are on top of Karen. If I click this, you can see that, oh, that's before I placed the beans on the subject. Or right here, before I cleared out the selection, here's the magic wand tool. Here's me just opening. So you can see every single thing I do shows up in history, and you can go forward and back in time to either reconstruct or deconstruct what you've done. You can even do some really cool things. You can create something called a snapshot. A snapshot is to save, it's like a bookmark to save your spot, to say, you know what, I think this is good, but I'm gonna just make sure by saving my place. So down here, you'll see that you can do two things. One is you can create a new document from the current state. In other words, say, you know what, I think this is good, but just make it a totally different document so I can continue working on this one, but I've got a separate one saved just in case. You can do that. Or you can go in here and there's this little camera. If I click on that, then it says snapshot 1. So now watch what happens. If I go in here, I'm just gonna start doing some wacky things. So I'm gonna get a brush and I'm gonna brush over her, and then I'm going to maybe make her a little bit smaller. I'm gonna rotate her around, stick her up there like that. I'm going to, I don't know, we'll just do all kinds of things here. I'm gonna clone maybe her face and then put her face down there. I'm just doing some wacky stuff. Okay, the thing to understand is here inside of the history palette, I can either go back one at a time and say, oops, undo that, undo that, undo that. Or I can just go back to that snapshot. Say, just go back to that place that I saved. It's really, really nice. Now, if you've really messed things up and you want to go all the way back to the very first time you open the document, you can just go to the very top, boom, Karen PSD, and there you have it. It is back to where you started. It's really cool. I can go back to that snapshot again. You can move around in time. Now, one of the things that is important to note, as soon as you close the image, the history is gone. It disappears. It doesn't stay there. So your history, going back and forth in time, is only good as long as the document is open. As soon as you close the document, all that history goes away. So you want to make sure that if you need to undo stuff in the future, that you don't close the document until you're in a good spot to do that. The other thing that we aren't going to cover in this workshop, but I'll just give you a little preview of what it is. There's a thing called the history brush. And so we go over here, you can see that we've got this guy right here, the history brush tool. And what that allows you to do is to paint your undoing mistakes. You can paint the undos. Let me show you what I mean. So if we go back in time here to open, you can see there's Karen and there's a white background. Okay, so I'm going to click to the left of that. There's a little paintbrush there. Then I'm going to go all the way down here and I'm going to put this back to where we were in our snapshot. If I have this history brush tool and I go here to Karen, what I can do is as I paint, it's going to paint that all the way back to that specific place, the place where I opened, but only where I paint. It's going to undo where I paint to where I said to undo to. And so that's how that works. And so even if I go in here, let's go back to this first snapshot. I'm going to go up here to Karen. I'm going to get a normal brush. I'm going to paint some crazy stuff on her. I'm going to maybe paint some red on her. I'm going to make her a little bit different position. So I've got that. So I've done some wacky stuff. And what I want to do is I want my history brush to go all the way back here to this opening. So I've got I'm on the Karen level here. I've got my history brush tool. And when I paint, it paints the history back on, but only to where I undid that. So we have this amazing ability to undo each of our steps, save our spot, and even paint our undos. It's an amazing tool built into Photoshop.